Hello, Logan here from Snooze. I've gotten a couple requests to do kind of like a lyric and like concept breakdown of the new album. I Know How You Will Die. You know, I've vaguely alluded to what it's about before, but I kind of wanted to make a little video and kind of explain the meanings behind for some of the lyrics and the concept, and this is said video. First thing I want to kind of talk about is, as a concept, it's kind of like multiple conversations between, myself and, people I've lost, or also conversations between myself and this like personified version of all of like my mental struggles, and essentially giving that version of myself like a distinct voice, and similarly to kind of how it is in real life. But there's other songs on there that are kind of removed from that dichotomy of the the two conversations.
Hey, 11 p.m. editing Logan here. I just wanted to put at the beginning of the video, which I somehow forgot to give any sort of content warning about, I do talk about my own suicidal ideation. I talk about suicide. I talk about death and terminal illness. And I just wanted to put that at the beginning of the video, because I think it's important that people can click off if they want to. So I'm going to start talking about that now.
And another thing is that there's multiple ways to interpret like the order of the tracks, but as you can see, as I probably superimposed on the screen right now, there is a hidden poem in the title tracks if you put them in a certain order. So it could be taken that that's the chronological order of the album, but it also could just be that's just one interpretation of the ideas that are presented and whatnot. But without further ado, I'll go through the lyrics and kind of explain what I was thinking with them. Starting with the second track, the first track with lyrics, Expectation. So here we go. Conflated sense of worth of interactions, counted in impressions only seconds long. Essentially, this song is like kind of about being like ghosted. So it's like me like obsessively checking if certain person like either read something or looked at your story, or all the standard social media things that drive a person insane and that we should not be conditioned to be doing, but I be doing it anyway. The last thing I'd ever want to do is pressure you to even say a word. Yeah, again, getting ghosted and like a little bitter about it. Continued blatant misunderstandings imbued with the power of narcissism unbound leads to this moment, conceited, aghast, and broken at the assumption that you don't like me as much as I thought or at all. It's about your ego getting pulverized by your own assumptions, really, my own assumptions, and kind of projecting things onto another person that may not have your own same point of view, and and how that isn't a great feeling when that gets the idea of that gets shattered. But again, I'm attributing it to my own conceited narcissism. The next part, the heavy part comes in. Who's that responded? Oh, never mind. Goddamn it all begets the fall. Better check again in about a minute or so. It seems it's delivered. Just talking about texting, getting, sending a message and then, like, just stressing about texting things. So now we wait. Sure, it's healthy. It's exhausting to expect things. Obviously, yeah. It's kind of on the lapse of communication and communicating expectations and, having those expectations be not fulfilled because obviously somebody like myself or others are kind of projecting without communicating your feelings and how that sucks. So there's that one. Very songy song. And it kind of, illustrates that in the context of the album, there are multiple time periods that are encapsulated by that idea of, jumping around the timeline and it being out of order. And some are just songs. Some, the main character is alive and, not in some weird purgatory. Like will be described later. Yeah, I, part of me also, I wanted this to kind of be like something that people found out for themselves. And I feel like I'm kind of spoiling the surprise a little bit, or like, the big reveal or whatever the fuck. But, nobody has said anything about it yet, so maybe it was a little too, hard to parse. So, anyway, next song is called Harked. This is like one of those that leans on that concept of there's that conversation, the two-way conversation between the manifestation of the mental illness and its, alluring, sort of like comforting whispers of like, obviously suicidal ideation, and how like at the time when one is engaging with that, how it can kind of seem like things are like better than how life is, etc. I'll explain more in the lyrics, but yeah. So I've strived to find a constant sense of self. So that's the that's the non-evil version saying that, and that's like, that's just talking about not having a sense of self. And here's the other, the other voice saying, open your eyes to death's conclusiveness, certainty and oneness. Never will you find a peace so unyielding, never will you be more united. It's kind of making death seem just, with the language, it's supposed to kind of make it seem appealing. And come take the final step into infinite embrace. After all of this, don't you think you've earned some rest? Again, just try, similarly to how, I have like had those thoughts, and, a lot of the album is about this, but sometimes that's just how the message is being delivered to myself. And it's, it is the way that it's framed in the album is that this is like some, a malevolent force trying to basically like kill me, but in like a smooth kind of like, oh, wouldn't this be nice kind of way. But let me actually make sure the camera is still on. It is. Then we switch back to the alive character. I mean, they're both technically alive, but we switch back to the other character, who says, if I could find the time to finally forget that what defines a mind's eventual unfurling, I would in a heartbeat. For what it's worth, it wasn't worth the pondering. So it's basically like, if I could stop being insane, I would. But at the time of writing, felt like it wasn't worth the endless, like, going over things in my head over and over to find why I'm feel the way that I do. And then this is back to the other voice. To speculate, should you wait for my warnings to overtake any free space, it'll be too late for us all. That's one, this is the first introduction of like referring to both of the voices as us. And it's just like another like hurry up and like do this type shit. Because, that's what the voice says sometimes, like, that you're on a timeline and it's urgent to end things, real uplifting stuff here in Snooze land. So yeah, that's Harked. Sorry. It does get better at the end. I hope that people don't listen to that or some of the other more like yikes kind of tracks on the album and don't get the full picture, because the album is not about killing yourself. It's about the opposite. So anyway, next song is called Without. This was about a dream that I had about Cameron, our old bass player who passed away, where he was alive. And those dreams where it feels very real, and you kind of want to just like keep the dream going, and you don't want to wake up. So yeah, the song is about that dream. So yeah, here's Without. Nice to see you too. I'm good and you. It's been 1,000 days now. That's actually 1,000 days is a reference to my old band Deer Legs, where Cameron and I, we had a song called 1,000 Days. So, and that's another inside joke that doesn't really need to be explained, but that's why that time frame is in there. Also, I wrote this about 3 years after he passed, so it's about 1,000 days. I ought to know what brought you in, but I know not to question it. Logic aside, suspended my disbelief just for the night. Obviously realizing I'm in a dream, trying to like make sense of it, but also saying like, fuck it. I'm not going to, and lucky me, the overwhelming dream urge to like wake up once you realize that you're in a dream did not happen in this instance. So got to hang out for a bit. The choir comes in and it goes, I want to live here. Obvious reasons. But I can only stay so long. For one faded moment, I am calm and weightless. You know, I recall a form of you above 90 pounds. It's a reference to Cameron lost a lot of weight near the end. But in my dream, you know, he was how I remembered him, which was, he was a big dude, but yeah, and recalling a you know, above 90 pounds, he had lost, a lot of weight due to illness. Yeah. So, furrowed brow, a nod, and vulgar conversation. This is a reference to the first time I met him. We were in the same detention one day. We had talked on MySpace before, and Cameron was friends with like a lot of my metalhead friends at the time, but I hadn't actually met him in person. So literally the first thing that I observed him do was he would always he would he grew out of doing this, but it was like one of these, like it was like the kind of like the the furrowed brow, and like it's like kind of one of these, like a nod of, you know, approval or something, you know, but he just like recognized who I was. And later after detention, me and I think somebody else, I don't remember, but we got out of detention and then started talking about something horrible. Of course, the vulgar conversation. I was a freshman, he was a sophomore. And then we just hung out and just kind of didn't stop ever since. Next lyrics are, we had dreams of life in a van, obviously referencing touring and, you know, kind of what we do now. And last lyrics, you know, just had to dig it in there, I guess, just make it hurt. But now the only dreams I like are the ones where you're alive. Fuck me, I guess. Next one. Mysterious voice. This is going back to that dichotomy between the two voices again. This is the evil voice. Destined or determined that you ask that of fate. Be quick as my time's precious. This is this song is sort of the alive version, kind of confronting the other, you know, the other voice. Yeah, so this is the bad voice, you know, basically being like, what the fuck are you talking to me about? And the next lyrics are the alive guy, or the guy that is confronting. Been getting the feeling that, again, it could be all explained with confidence. Constantly on alert since we first started, so that's the first voice. And then the other voice is kind of suggesting that it didn't prohibit, rather it did wonders once effort first started. This is kind of in reference to essentially the realization that there is something wrong and that this is not a fundamental part of my existence, is this self-hatred. You know, it is there's something to be explained, and you can get to the bottom of it, essentially. And what the other voice is suggesting, that like this sort of, you know, this is also kind of like present in our song from Still, what's a secret ingredient of a toilet, that this voice and this illness has produced good results in some respect, that it did wonders. Like, it, in Toilet, one of the lyrics is, like, you have me to thank for what we've become. A sort of self-serving perfectionism that will make shit happen, but it's all in the service of, like, it's not coming from a good place. So that's where I was at the time. But yeah. Next lyrics are monitoring wherever I look and how long I've been looking and the time it takes to make it out from here, and any and all perturbances I might have caused and all the space I'm taking up. I found the cause. I'm letting on a similar focused admonishment, find a way to base. So it's basically saying, like, all of this anxiety, all of these things that I worry about all the time, and the space I'm taking up, it comes from a place of, like, this is basically just like addressing the fact that these are not innate things about, my life experience. It comes from a place of non-self-acceptance and, like, that I've essentially been letting this feeling and this very laser-focused self-hatred, be so pervasive. And then other voice says, you're out of time, you're out of line. Obviously, like, feeling called out. Other guy asks, did you ever even have our best interests at heart? You have done nothing but made us small in the presence of titanic imposition. So, obviously, it's like, this shit has not really helped. It's not really served us in any way but made the real me very small in the wake of, this self-hating but achieving thing, And other voice responds, do you not remember? I kept us safe in a world antithetical to us. Kind of relates to old, like, being bullied for, being autistic or whatever the fuck I am. And the things that you do to shut that down or mask or change and repress yourself, in hopes that, you don't get shit talked anymore. But yeah, so where that one is in the album, kind of, if you work out the poem, you can kind of tell where that one is. On a Superposition, this one is basically about, this is another songy song. It's basically about people that don't really take accountability, and they don't, basically that. Multiple people have been referenced in this song, but, it's basically people that don't take accountability and how you can't really take those people with you. So, here's the lyrics. Fault, I'm indebted to lost causes. We know this. Just kind of, it's a me problem. I definitely stick around for things that I shouldn't. No one's fault for the common ground we've sullen. I know that grammatically it's not technically correct. It's more like sullied would be the better word, but sullen is like kind of like, it's not really a verb, but whatever, fuck it. Been thinking in the interim, as discussed, this and all the things you did and said were so warranted. Your response, basically, in these situations with these people, I typically will, yield and be like, that's so valid. And the people that I'm referencing, it doesn't even approach conversation. It just turns into defense. So, your response, disgust, defend yourself, watch what you say, deflect, and deny your part in this. It's just, pretty standard shitty behavior. Oh, that's right. I never thought to consider it might be all our faults instead. So it's kind of sarcastically just being like, oh, how could I be so stupid? It's definitely all of our faults. Dreaming that things were different, or maybe just that you were different. It's kind of just made to be kind of a mean lyric. Come here, Butter. Come here, Butter. Butter. Yeah, so next lyrics are, it's hard to rationalize carrying a person with you who you've never known at all. I have no idea who you even are. Do you even know yourself? Do you even want to? Obviously talking about someone who I feel has a completely warped sense of self because they have so many lies in the air they can't even keep track of it. And how can you connect to someone like that? Next is, I don't pretend to know what happened to you to compel you to live a life contrived. Kind of hurtful, but, it's like, I don't blame you for how your brain works. I don't understand. I am just here, seeing through it, yet unable to truly get through because you refuse to take any modicum of accountability. You can't really, unless that person changes, I'm not going to be around for it. Anyway, next one. Overheard from the Void. So this and Contingent are kind of left over from an old idea of what the concept of the album was going to be. I kind of originally had a way more built out idea of, the two voices are still there, but in the first iteration of what I was thinking for the concept, the other voice wins, and the person is in purgatory or dead, or you don't really know. So this is kind of it can still be viewed from the concept that eventually it can still be viewed through the lens of how the concept eventually kind of came together, but originally, it was kind of built off a different idea. Anyway, deciding soon on finishes 6x2x2. This is basically a phone call that the person that is in purgatory is overhearing and whatnot, because I guess you can do that. Cardboard means we are coming off as cheap. My vote is still for the mahogany. I don't know when I will be coming in, but I'm flying Spirit, so that sucks. So it's basically like the phone call is deciding on... it's basically talking about like the cremation container, or like the... the thing to be burned in when somebody passes away, i.e. talking about Cameron. This is basically to throw more confusing like perspective shit in the mix. It's basically me in purgatory listening to myself, and then the next lyrics are me, being shitty to myself about the phone call that I'm having, with somebody else. So the shitty voice says, rest eludes while eternal wander finds them. Rest illusions from a former self. Can you recognize this disembodied voice? What distinct brotherly apathy. It's kind of saying, look how, lackadaisically this motherfucker is talking about the coffin or the cremation thing. Like, he doesn't care at all. That's kind of how I felt about myself trying to plan Cameron's service. It was during COVID, and it was just I don't know if you would call it business, but it's just like organizational and like sort of like emotionally removed, because it's just like, yeah, you kind of have to do that in order to orchestrate something like this. And of course, the shitty version of myself made me feel bad about that. So that's basically what the song is about. Then back to the phone conversation. Do you know who's all going to be there? What's happening after? Oh, nice. Sounds fun. And obviously, like, with the context of the shitty voice, even something as innocuous as just like, oh, what's happening after the service? Where's everybody meeting? Like, let's all meet up, can be spun in a way that makes me feel bad about myself. This is so fun. Anyway, Contingent. Kind of still on that same idea of... I gotta let you go, Butter. You're very warm. Yeah, so Contingent is still based on that old idea of like the purgatory and like, the other voice winning. Or maybe it's all a dream. Whoa. Anyway, you are contingent on an unfulfilled dot in time. This is the other voice. Or at the time of this being written, you didn't know that it was an evil voice. It's just like kind of like a narrator, similar to like what was going on in Familiaris. There's like this like universal narrator thing. So part of the original concept was supposed to be like you're supposed to figure out what part of the timeline you're in and whatever. And it kind of doesn't make a ton of sense with the other, with the final concept. But, sometimes shit doesn't make sense and you just fucking write it anyway. So instead of final rest, abeyance of all you are, call it time and why. After all, this is goodbye. Don't you try to atone. It's basically like you're in purgatory. You don't know what you did, but you're here. For what I've done, for what could I possibly have done to bring me here? So that's the other voice, confused. Like, what the fuck am I doing? This is not what you have done, but is that what you have not? And yeah, another part of the original concept is like you're trying to figure out why. And, still present in the new concept is like trying to figure out why the fuck you were so upset to go to purgatory by your own hand. Who am I? It's the other voice. And back to the shitty voice. You recognize your bulk of understanding that until whatever is unfulfilled. You will remain here in all moments at once until you finally face your bitter end. More purgatory talk. And it feels just like standing, and yet it all feels just like spinning, just like disorienting. I'm sure being in purgatory doesn't feel great. Next song, I Listened. You're defined intrinsically, forged in the same hypocrisy that you claim inculpation upon your many transgressions. This is shitty voice, pretty much at the zenith of its shittiness. Culpable, not just a list of derelictions, a pattern of abuse. So, it's ironic in this moment that, the shitty self and the real self kind of become one, because the most horrible shit I've ever said has been shit to myself. And one could view that through the frame of like murderous abuse. And these are just kind of the things that you say to yourself in order to rationalize why you deserve to die. Count the lives that you've destroyed, sating a self-described victim in a killer's body. Load them into your gun of guilt. Fun stuff. We have a question from the other voice. What made you like this? Questioning just like why, again, why does this overwhelming self-hatred exist? Other voice says, I think you're avoiding the question of what did it. You did it. I think you're avoiding the answer that you did it all to yourself. Can't you just admit it? Admit it's always been in service to selfishness. You didn't even process the damage you'd cause. Irreparable. You are irredeemable. Again, it kind of gives the indication that you don't really know. This could be either voice talking right now, because I could be talking to the personification of my mental illness and saying that everything that has caused me pain in terms of like things I've done to myself have been caused irreparable damage. Or it could be the bad voice saying that I do that to other people and you should feel bad. Yeah, so this whole last passage, it's kind of like up in the air which voice is doing this, or which voice is accusing who of what. Because it could be either, it's could be viewed, lots of the album can be viewed from multiple different perspectives. So it says we are, meaning we are one being. Whose lives did we destroy besides our own? I refuse to renew the cycle again. So this is basically a live guy explaining that, and rightfully realizing that the most pain that we have caused has been to ourselves, and that is a cycle that he doesn't want to participate in anymore, which good for him. Next song. All right, title track, I Know How You Will Die. This one is basically a bunch of questions that I ask loved ones that I have lost, and in the context of being in the depths of a very, a bad mental health hole, the things that you ask before making any big decision yourself. Can you tell apart me and him? can you tell apart all your pieces? It's a little brutal, but it's just like, you know, when we all die, it's the same shit. We're just goo. It's more questions. Did we see it coming? Did you try to be comforting? It's just like, yeah, it's reference to Cameron again. And even though I guess we did see it coming with his health, he did, at least for me, he put me at ease in his own way. Yeah. Will it hurt? Can that be circumvented in any kind of way? Obviously referencing dying. Will it happen suddenly? Were you there and then you weren't? Just more ponderings of death and consciousness and what happens. Will you be alone in bed? Will you be found overhead? Will you be sober? Willed unto death, destined. These are some of the lyrics that I had pretty much the whole time, because they reference, you know, the people that I've lost. The first one, will you be alone in bed? That's how Cameron was found. Will you be found overhead? That's how my friend Kyle was found. Will you be sober? Willed unto death, destined. It's, you know, a little bit of the title of the album and how I was feeling at the time is that's how I thought that I would die, or at least pondering if I would be sober or if I would kill myself. You know, willed unto death. I'm not going to get my $2 of YouTube money from this video, am I? Just a joke. Anyway, was it out of your control? Or was control of it all you had left? How long were you thinking it over? Just more reference to both of them, Cameron and Kyle. You know, thinking it over. You know, lost Kyle to suicide. Was it out of your control, like Cameron? Yeah. What was it like to have a bomb on your chest and holes in your guts? When Cameron passed away, he had a massive hernia kind of poking through his chest cavity. And bomb on your chest, holes in your guts were the initial diagnosis from him of diverticulitis, and that's basically where it started, is diverticulitis. Do you feel the hole you left in us? Yeah, I just wanted that line. Yeah. I can hear the offer from farther under. I can hear the laughter of the coffer. You know, talking about kind of some Greek mythology, Hades type beat with Charon, the coffer, the little coins and stuff. I can feel it all turn to salt in my corneas, primed to fall. There's multiple ways to take that. I mean, you can feel it all. The feelings turn to salt in my corneas, like literally just the most painful thing in the world, just pouring salt in your eyeballs. Or it could be just like, you know, feeling like you're gonna cry. You know, either one of those, or both. Another question, does it ever get better? And can you still remember? What does it mean to be seen in only dreams? In past tense? More questions. Brings us to the somehow even more uplifting song on a precipice. This one is like the most literal, representation of being on the brink of suicide. And a grief unyielding, untoward. It's kind of just a little dig at how it's frowned upon to be mentally ill. Just need that little push forward and let gravity define me. I can see it, you and I sublimated. The you and I being me and the bad guy. I can see the end. Can you? Pink and red mist. Just. What if you didn't go? This is sort of me in a roundabout way talking to my friend Kyle, or anyone who has felt this way. And it's also kind of in the song, I guess it's a third character that is there with the person at the colloquial precipice. In parentheses, what then? It's another two-sided conversation. What if you didn't go? What do you know about it? No one would ever know. I would, I will. Like, I would still feel like this. No one would ever know what waits for you below. And, no one would know that you were up here and how close you were to death. Other guy. And what then? You don't get it. This is kind of another reference to a conversation that Cameron and I had about mental illness, where he said that I didn't get it. And pissed me the fuck off. Anyway. I know we haven't been as close lately. And these days and this place could bury anyone with any sense. Trying to just reason with myself and with anyone who has ever thought this. Oh, the way they say everything at once. Do you think the way it has always been is good enough to sustain the tired flame of us? Every advice that everyone gives about anything, it just is a mush of nothing. And it doesn't help, The way that you're talking to me right now, other guy, it also doesn't help. Do you think that the way that things have always been is, good enough? And rightfully, other guy says, well, what I know is we'll never know without giving it another day. Kind of corny, but it's true. And it's gotten me through it before. And the only final decision you can make is the one of your own death. Everything else is transient and can change, and no matter what situation you're in, you never know. Cheery. So great. Love this. Well, congrats for making it this far into the video. so fun. This is where I hope I wrap it up in a nice little bow into the sad zone, into how I sort of figured it out, at least for myself. And, you know, a year or two ago, I had a realization that I was essentially abusing a little kid in a cage, you know, which was myself. And somehow, when I think about being shitty to other people, or like not apologizing, or like, I don't know, like not taking accountability, or like, you know, not being a people pleaser, like that, those things just never occurred to me when it come to other people. Like, I would always put other people before myself. I would give other people the benefit of the doubt, but I would never do that to myself. And for some reason, it sort of clicked to me that I was doing this to myself. Like, why am I not giving myself the same grace? And that realization, combined with many, many others, and many breakthroughs in therapy and in my own journey with mental health, led me to obviously not want to kill myself anymore. And the things that I have like learned can't really be unlearned, because you know, obviously this whole album, hello bud. So I mean, the whole album is my journey with mental health and how I got to the realization of like, yeah, I can't really unlearn knowing and loving myself. It's hard to describe how I got there, but this song kind of illustrates that. It's another two-voice perspective thing, but one of the voices kind of feels like almost like a therapist, but it's really me talking to myself. Up to this point today, you've meticulously detailed what it is that you say you're dealing with, or maybe not dealing with, what you're healing from. Very much like, yeah, that's like, you know, somebody sitting on the little therapist chair and just like, all right, here's what we've, you know, let me make sure I've got all that. And in a way, like, it could spin the entire album into this entire thing. It was just a therapy session, and this is just all the things that I've felt and the power of therapy. Or it could be something else, you know, make it up. Who cares? Yeah, what you're healing from, the changes that you make or do not make cascade, but also fade. So give yourself a break. You know, worrying about the things that you have or haven't changed, like, they both have a cascading effect, meaning they can change everything, but they also aren't completely self-defining. Like, they fade. Things fade. You know, you don't have to worry about it forever. Like, yeah. Give yourself a break. What did you expect after keeping yourself in a cage? What would you say to him? Not to you now, but back then. So, again, going back to that thing I just talked about kind of keeping myself in a cage. Like, what did you expect would happen? Like, there's many mental faculties that are affected by a unyielding self-hatred. Like, what did you expect? And what would you say to him? Does he deserve all of the care that you wanted? and none of the hate you spew at him? Are you proud of what you have accomplished and what's been said? You know, just asking myself the important questions here. Do you have the strength to carry on? Can you find it within to forgive a ghost of what was? You know, can you forgive yourself for the loss, the lost time and the lost happiness of spending years of your life just pulverizing yourself for effectively nothing, you know? Yeah. Can you find it within to forgive a ghost of what was, a fragile state of mind, a son, child, all you've ever known? You know, again, referencing like I'm a person. So, stop being such a dick. So, this is finally full circle. Back to kind of what earlier, what would you say to him? This is what I would say to young me that was in the process of splitting into this self-hating machine that was, you know, not honoring my inner child, not being nice to myself. Hey, bud, I know you're scared. Do you want to sit down and talk about it? Calm your head. I'm here for you. What do you want to know? And yeah, you know, you can take that last line multiple ways. You can say, what do you want to know about what's going on in the world? What do you want to know in general? Curiously, you know? You can't wonder about things that you're interested in if you're dead. You know? What do you want to know? Yeah. Hello, bud. He's not doing it. The last song is called Until. Hello, bud. Wiener's here, everybody. The last song is called Until. This one, lyrically, is mostly about somewhat of the same shit that's been going on the rest of the album. Is time looking for you is time spent looking for youthful essence, not all that fruitful. Trying to find the magical thing that caused everything to go wrong is just not that fruitful. You know, in therapy, like, sometimes it is. Sometimes it is that simple. Sometimes it is like, oh shit, I just remembered this horrible thing that happened to me. And I understand why I get all my problems now. But that didn't really happen for me, you know. There could be something someday, who knows? But in terms of like knowing there's a problem and finding it's some magical thing, it wasn't that fruitful for me. And at the time of writing this, I said, choose full plate over time spent looking for the truth. And at the time I wrote it, and it mostly meant like choose a full schedule or whatever, and things will just be better, and stop spending so much time obsessing over what went wrong in your childhood that made you so fucked up. But especially with the addition of my friends, we were all, when we recorded this, it was me and my friend Autumn, and she played banjo, and we were out on a camping trip in the UP, and I really wanted to get like campfire vibes. I wanted to do it in one take and just use the take and just have it, because the goal of the song is like, this is what the shit is actually about. This is what life is actually about, is just fucking hanging out with your friends, not obsessing over every minuscule second of your album. And it's like, it's funny and sort of ironic because the one take that we did, pretty much every take, I think I either left my cell phone or we left Autumn's cell phone right next to the Tascam that we brought, and it totally fucked up like every take in some way. So I did end up having to edit multiple takes together, which is what I did not want to do. I wanted to kind of keep all the little mistakes in there, so I threw one of our mistakes in at the end and with our laughter, and I thought it came out really nice. So that's it. Really joyful, cheery album. I want to thank you for getting to the end of the video. I want to stress that this album is very much about not killing yourself. And I know that there's not that much emphasis on what happens after you decide that. But, you know, I'm living proof that, you know, good shit can happen after attempts, or after you find out shit about yourself that you can't unlearn. You know, I can't unlove myself. The things that I went through to get there were long, and it took a lot of self-reflection. It took a lot of wading through, you know, the bullshit and wading through the uncomfortability of existence, and, you know, being alone with your thoughts and learning to self-soothe and learning about yourself, why you skip right to, you know, the shit zone, or like the you know, the mentally unwell zone. And there are so many uncaring, unfeeling monsters in this world. And if you feel sad, or if you feel anything, we need you here. You know, the war that we are fighting is against ambivalence and greed and evil. And if you feel anything at all, you know, you're on our team and we need you. The world needs feeling, emotional people to move it forward and to make great art and to just hold people. And yeah. So, all right, that's the end.